they've already set for a lot of their impact claims, he probably agrees with. But his argument is that capitalism is not the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. Which means you don't have to have a bunch of silly other framework arguments, etc. Your impact claims need to focus on the way that they are. Now you can have no value to life claims as well with some of this, but remember, this is kind of the big measure for this case. So, with that being said, so much in an impact term debate comes around that you do have to control the sustainability debate to be in control of the rest of the impact debate. If they win that cap is sustainable, then it means that a lot of their impact turns gain a lot of traction for them. But if you win that it's unsustainable, they don't get any impacts. No impact turns are relevant. For every app scenario that they have, spend time re-explaining how Marx can explain why that's happening better than they are. No, we aren't having economic crisis because we don't have enough scientific innovation in the space. We actually are having this because capitalism naturally distorts innovation and causes conflict between the worker, etc. Read cards on it. But you want to control why the app scenarios are happening so that they don't just get a free advantage. That's also how you answer their advantages, is to re-explain that the root cause of their advantage can actually be explained better by your theory. One of the better answers to Marx's case are things like transition wars debates, that if we transition from capitalism, it'll cause a lot of different forms of violence. Be on top of that debate. In the block, you're just going to have to outcard them. Just read a lot of cards that answer this. Be on top of that debate. Win the sustainability debate. But make sure that this is one that is often underutilized by apps, but I think is one that it should be used a lot more, is that particular part of the transition wars debate. If you're debating middle of the road and K apps that have a plan, here's my advice. Read links, followed by reading some more links, and then when you're in the block, read even more links. As many links as you can get to this app will prove that their form of reformism will fail and will all be used to explain the app in a different way. Links are crucial in a debate like this because they have to go for a permutation. They cannot impact turn with a middle-of-the-road K app. The likelihood of them being able to say, no dudes, cap is key to solve all these different types of wars is very low. They will have to try for link terms, permutations, and disadvantages to the alt. So reading more links helps you against those permutations. Like I said on the last slide, re-explain the app according to class politics. If it's a feminism-based app, explain why capitalism is the primary mode for how we distance or create sexual discrimination in the status quo. Deposit time where you know you have weaknesses, which is the link turn part of this debate, because you don't have to in the other part of the debate like impact turns. So just read a lot of links. You sound like you have a question. Third type of app, the radical left, far leftist apps. To be honest with you, this is kind of the specialty that I've been using against really far K-left apps. Whenever I debated, the apps that I did were generally very, very far leftist apps. And the times where I thought I was in the most trouble and where I lost my bigger rounds at things like the NDT were when people would go for things like CAT. Number one, much like when you're impact turning an app like this with things like hedge good, sometimes the app just has trouble whenever you are a hardliner. So be a hardliner with the capitalism bad case. Capitalism bad can be just as exclusive to the app as saying hedge good, except that it has a little bit of a better return for judges because they don't have to defend what they presume to be a form of exceptionalism or violence in like a manner that might seem racist. They get to talk about it in terms of being anti-capitalist. Like I said, with the last flow, maintain exclusivity. The way that you do that is links and lots of links. The Marx postmodernism divide in the literature is huge. They don't like each other. They both write about each other a lot. So the links that exist are very, very wide. You should think of it as if you're in a plan-plan debate. I don't know if you know what a plan-plan debate is. But the thesis for why I'm going to do this is that you want to read a lot of cards about why the hardline anti-capitalist methodology is incompatible with the affirmative methodology. Which means in this, it's a battle of if your method of anti-capitalism is a good thing or if it's better than the method of the act, whatever the reflection is, the interrogation, the epistemological attempt at new understanding, whatever the move that the act made is, your anti-capitalist methodology is better. The alt is more strategic in that sense. Don't be fearful of defending violence in rounds like this. Essentially, if they say your alt is violent, you cause violence against people like the app, your response needs to be correct, but the violence endemic to capitalism is so frightfully large that it makes that violence both inevitable and necessary to do in order to jettison away from the system that we're in now. You also say that their response of calling you violent and demanding that we not be violent during revolutions is itself a link that stops our ability to have effective revolutions. Violence will probably be necessary and once revolutions start happening. So at some point, somebody's just going to have to be comfortable with it. Yeah?
I'm a little bit confused. So them calling you violent is what exactly?
A link.
Okay.
It is a link. And your whole point is that you want to prove why the permutation fails by saying things like, you make too much discussion happen when we're in the committees ready to get rolling on a revolution. You make it to where there's no compromises. You're divisive because you say we can't do this measure, we can't do that measure. When in fact what we have to do for the revolution is sometimes do things that are totalizing or violent. So the claim of this is just too violent makes it impossible for us to have an effective revolution. Use your links to prove why the act is unnecessary as a political gesture as well. A lot of your links function as arguments against the app's method solving. So your links prove that the app it doesn't matter. There's no reason to do it. There's only a reason to go with the alt, which means there's no net benefits to things like the permutation. Only a reason why the alt would be able to solve. Okay. Quick section on answering the cap cave, because I think we have time. This is important. Couple of tips. One, quickly identify what type of capitalism K you are debating against. Before the 2AC, am I debating Marxism? Am I debating Lacan? What am I debating? Have two separate blocks already set up for these types of debates. Don't just assume you can have a 2AC cap K block and it'll be all right. Have separate blocks for each type. Number two is to maintain spin control. The best advantage that they will have when they read links and impact scenarios against you is that they'll be trying to re-explain your act for you. Don't let them do that. Understand what type of politics you're defending, your interpretation of how the world is existing, what it's doing, and re-explain those problems according to your terms and not Marxist or Lacanian terms. Every example they give, you should give a counter-example for why, no, our interpretation is actually correct. My third tip is to pressure the alternative. Please don't let them get away with actually destroying the entirety of capitalism. If the 2R gets to start with, you've conceded the full amount of alt solvency. The capitalist system will be destroyed if you vote negative. It is only a question of links. You are generally hosed in this debate. There is not a lot of coming back for you, unless you're just in a giant impact debate, in which case that's a little bit different. You've still got a lot of game like capitalism is good. But if you're a KF or anything like that, don't let them do that. Remember also that this is a big straight-up K. And for Marxists, it's utilitarian. So framework responses are just kind of spinning your wheels. You're not getting anywhere with them. They're going to it's very likely you're going to end up weighing your app against it anyways. So don't worry about making framework arguments. More specifically on this. With policy apps, control politics. And what I mean by that is control who has the most correct understanding of how the world works. Is it a realist understanding? Is it a Marxist understanding? Win the debate. Their argument is that class analysis is what we should use to read the status quo. Defend whatever politics your app is based in as having a better way to interpret your advantages. You should read a couple of cards in the 2AC that defend your type of politics. If you have a realist app, you should still read a couple of cards about realism being the best way to interpret political relations, and then say your authors are not capitalist hacks. They are realist authors who have correct depictions of whatever is happening with China, Russia, whatever the country is. After you've read those cards, then re-explain your advantage according to those terms. No, this is not a question of class conflict. It is a question of China trying to assert its sovereignty. That's where my lecture is.
Do you know where the thing next door moved to? For some odd reason?
I can tell you after this. I have it on my computer.
Keep going. I hear it good.
Awesome. Remember, the case has a quicker time frame than the app, than the alt. The amount of time that it will take them to collapse and put a new system in place will generally happen after whatever the app impact is. Hopefully. If the impact is a very long, detailed one, you might be wrong on that, but always try to spin it as if you have a quicker time frame than the K impacts. Because even if you lose the sustainability debate, if you have any risk of your advantages left, whatever wars are spawned from that, you can still win as killing off the population prior to us getting an effective revolution. If you do have case impacts that have a long time to develop, like if it's a 20-year warming time frame or something like that, consider reading a 2AC add-on that has a quicker time frame. I know it's odd to read a 2AC add-on to a K, but that's what I'm telling you to do. They'll probably have a link to it, whatever. 3 is the sustainability debate. This has to be won before you can even think about going for impact turns or turns to the alt. If you lose this debate, but you win the turns to the alt will make it violent or authoritarian or any number of things, it is wholly irrelevant. Because those things will all happen inevitably. This is as if you are winning the uniqueness debate on politics and are trying to go for link turns. You have to do it first. You have to have multiple warrants. A lot of the better ones are about how technology is able to keep up with things like future growth, etc. And warrants about how the last crisis that we went through economically did not show that the system can collapse, but rather show that it can rebound even after its bust cycle. So you just have to read evidence about kind of those things, be on top of the sustainability debate. And remember the fundamentals of impact turning. You have to have defense to their impact scenario along with offense to yours. You cannot just have impact turns about why capitalism is good. You need to have defense about the reasons why they think capitalism is bad. The big kind of impacts that they have for capitalism being bad is that capitalism causes war, it destroys the environment, and it's ethically a bad way to relate to other humans. If you're going to impact turn, you need to have reasons why it doesn't cause war, why capitalism has been good for the environment or can regulate itself to create better things for the environment. But you need to have defense to their scenarios as well. You cannot just have the standard impact turns and hope to win this debate. If you're a KF, your answers will be a little bit different.